Welcome to another edition of the Inspired Stories podcast, where leaders share their experiences so we can learn from their successes and be inspired by how they've overcome adversity. My name is Anthony Codaspoti, and today's guest is McKinney Todd. She is the Chief Strategy and Integrations Officer at Good Life Innovations, Inc., a forward-thinking organization founded in 1977 and based in Kansas. Good Life empowers individuals with disabilities and seniors by offering innovative home care services, adult day programs, housing assistance, behavioral support, and targeted case management. Their mission is to ensure autonomy and dignity for every client, and they become a leader in disability services and support. Megan is a spirited storyteller and strategic leader who has worked on critical decision-making processes, spearheaded innovative projects, and collaborated with senior leadership to drive growth at Good Life. Her background includes extensive experience in the disability sector, where she developed her passion for creating inclusive environments. At Good Life, she continues to guide the team toward new solutions and partnerships that directly impact the lives of those that they serve. Now, before we get into all that good stuff, today's episode is brought to you by my company, Add Back Benefits Agency, where we offer very specific and unique employee benefits that are both great for your team and fiscally optimized for your bottom line. One recent client was able to add over $900 per employee per year in extra cash flow by implementing one of our innovative programs. Results vary for each company, and some organizations may not be eligible. To find out if your company qualifies, contact us today at addbackbenefitsagency.com. Now back to our guest today, the Chief Strategy Officer of Good Life Innovations, McKinney Todd. I appreciate you making the time to share your story today.
Yeah, so happy to be here. Thank you, Anthony.
Okay, so before we get into talking about Good Life Innovations, maybe tell us a little bit about the path that led you there. What were some stops along the way that have been sort of formative for you?
Sure. So this is actually really interesting. I had dabbled in sort of university work ever since I graduated with my bachelor's degree, and ended up actually back at home in Lawrence, Kansas after graduating, working as, like you do, a barista in downtown Lawrence, Kansas. Actually met up with a couple of attorneys there who could really use some administrative support. And so I started sort of toggling, working behind an espresso machine and also supporting these small businesses, and got an opportunity to actually teach at Haskell Indian Nations University. So I was also gigging as an adjunct professor there in the English department. And piecing all of those things together just kind of felt at some point like it was going to be a real challenge to get traction in any one thing. And so just started applying for some jobs in the area and found one at the University of Kansas, actually the department for, it was the Center for Research is where I was working, in the Center for Research. And yeah, so I got a job there and it kind of kickstarted my career. I thought I would be able to stay there forever. Really enjoyed the work in the Research Center on pre-award grant processes and work, and sort of helping investigators and the researchers across the university gain funding for the important work they were doing. And that's when my paths crossed with Dr. Mike Strauss. And he was actually one of the investigators and one of the sponsors for an individual, actually a small handful of researchers at the university. And so he asked to, this is actually so funny. I asked to meet with him because we were sort of behind on a couple of the project goals and needed to get reestablished in the new calendar year for the work we were going to move forward with. I had no idea what I was asking of a CEO at the time. But he honored the request. We met up, we got sort of in sync, and I sat there with sort of the gall to say, we're behind on our project. You're the sponsor for it. You need to you need to pay up. We need to get re-going. and he just sort of sat back and crossed his arms and he's like, so what degree did you get? And what is your experience? And before I knew it, he was recruiting me to come and actually lead the grant writing initiatives that Good Life needed. And it just kind of synergistically happened around the same time that I felt like my ability to be compassionate toward folks who were different than me I was really struggling with that. And I had made an intentional decision, totally separate from this, to just focus a little bit more on my ability to be compassionate and kind, and thought, well, what better way to do that than this opportunity, which sort of gave me an entrance to an industry I had no experience with up to this point. So yeah, we started our journey together, and Mike has become a very close friend and mentor. He is still my boss, and we work together now, instead of just sort of a local nucleus of grant writing and grant project management. We now have expanded, diversified our revenues to the point where we are really working not just in Kansas anymore, but leveraging sort of the mission behind what we do to have a national footprint instead. And so, yeah, it's been quite the journey. It's been very interesting.
So it's interesting that you were able to develop grant writing skills when you were at the university. And, you had this chance to meet with Dr. Michael Strauss because he was not pulling his weight on a project. And, very politely and kindly, you requested to sit down with him. And it seems like he really appreciated the fact that you were just very direct and sort of matter of fact and, very businesslike, and, hey, we need to get these things done. And he saw something in you like, I want Megan on my team. And so that's what he originally recruited you for, right, to help with writing his own grants there. Yep. And then your role has expanded in the time that you've been there.
Quite a bit. Yeah. It's not been without hardship, of course, because no journey really is. But yeah, that's where it started. And we just ended up being able to figure out how to work together in a really meaningful way. And I think that allowed for us to both sort of explore what the natural best fit would be for the use of my talents within the organization. I really honor that. It's a tremendous asset to me to be sort of targeted for what I uniquely bring to the table, and for somebody to say, hey, I think that could work for us and for this mission. And yeah, so we collaborated on that together.
So let's try to put the services or what it is that you guys do there into some different buckets. How can we kind of categorize these things? And then maybe we'll drill down into a couple of them.
Okay.
So break it out for us, sort of the different buckets of what you guys do.
You got it. Here's how it goes. And it's actually a lot. So hang on with me for just a second.
Okay.
Okay. So Good Life started in 1977. Your intro did a really good job of sort of highlighting what the core of that mission was. This is a time when disability services really didn't exist beyond institutionalization. And especially for people who had pretty intense or severe intellectual or developmental disabilities, the options that existed within the community were just so poor, and the quality of life really was just not what this our founders, this group of parents, thought was best for their loved ones. And so it was very grassroots effort at the time to just sort of sit in, dig in, and work with the University of Kansas Department of Applied Behavioral Science, which has been our partner now for 50 years, almost 50 years. And for us to, the energy of the group was essentially like, how can we do things differently? What does community-based services really look like? How can we leverage existing funding and, create an alternative to institutionalization for our loved ones? And we have championed that for decades now. But to the point, and I think because Kansas in particular has been, I'll say like a not necessarily a leader in disability services. We do, the state here does really well within the means that they have, but we have never really had an opportunity to leverage Medicaid or Medicare funding and provide a high quality life for individuals with disabilities here. So that gap in like the funding reimbursements that come down through, that's complicated, federal, state funding, and the cost of providing high quality services here, the gap just kind of keeps growing. And we really kind of, and I champion so much what Dr. Strauss has done here, because necessity was the mother of our invention. And we realized really early on that we were going to need to be innovative and creative with the way that we delivered care in order to bridge that gap. And so, yes, grant funding was a part of that. But it ended up being so much more about how we could redesign service models and approaches in order to bridge that gap.
So Kansas was sort of behind the curve in all of this, specifically because of the state rules regarding Medicaid reimbursement, or were there other things, just a whole bunch of factors at play?
Yeah, I think, different states sort of champion different matters. And I would say, I don't know what the issue is specifically,
Okay.
Except that we're just, the funding in this state hasn't really followed, as much as other states. The investment hasn't come back to the disability industry.
Got it. And so part of what Good Life has been able to do over the years is sort of think creatively about how to bridge that gap in funding, grants, and maybe there's fundraisers, donations.
Yeah, and so that's like the kind of the typical solution that people come up with. Well, we'll just get other people to pay for it. And what sort of uniquely set Good Life apart was this idea that we could redesign, like look at other industries and what they used to either to diversify their revenues or to provide better services. And okay, so I have like a couple of examples. Most importantly, in 1999, we started iLink Technologies. And this was essentially the nation's first use case of leveraging technology in the care industry for people with disabilities. So it wasn't even Y2K yet. We're talking like blips of very...
This is early days, yeah.
The early days of...
monitors are the old bulky cathode ray tubes. They're not in color.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you get the idea. And so essentially we were thinking like, how could we leverage technology to expand and improve the capacity of our caregivers and improve the quality of life for the people that we serve. iLink now is a incredible, I could spend our whole time talking just about iLink, but it's essentially the tool, the primary tool that we're able to lean on. And it's a technology infrastructure that combines smart home solutions with really solid proprietary software that interprets intelligently what's happening in a home. And based on the individualization of the configuration of that home and of the logic that's built into the software, we're able to say, hey, something's not quite right here. Somebody should probably check in on Johnny. Or we saw that the door opened in the middle of the night at Sally's house. That really doesn't make sense. Should we check in? Oh, no, she steps out for, she steps out for a cigarette every night. It's really okay. So it's those sort of things. We're actually allowing for people with disabilities to be more independent. The other side of that is like that core group of people with severe challenging either behaviors or disabilities. In that case, we're finding that iLink is really a tremendous support for the staff who need to be there on the regular. But there's a caregiving crisis going on. And this is sort of the second thing that Good Life does really well. So technology, of course, unique service models, redesigning those service models to really leverage what technology can do. The other side of it, and what a decision that we made actually.
Sorry, before we get into that, I just want to clarify. So iLink Technologies, this is sort of a standalone entity that not only supports you in what Good Life is doing, but this is technology that's available for other care providers to put in place. And so you're able to use some of the funds and the profits from this to help fill some of the bridging gap at Good Life Innovations.
Yeah,
okay.
You got it.
And then, sorry, where I cut you off, the other component you guys have made a decision on is?
We expanded our mission, and this was really critical in, I want to say, about 10 years ago. We intentionally decided that just serving people with disabilities wasn't really the core, but we had done some research that identified that aging adults had similar barriers to independence that people with disabilities did. And so in addition to sort of expanding the mission to say, we want to provide a high quality life and redefine what's possible for people who have barriers to independence, we also included improving the lives of the caregiving workforce, who are really the backbone of the work that we are trying to do. And this is where sort of the other arm, this diversifying our revenues and expanding our entrepreneurial prowess in order to bridge that funding gap, has really just taken off. There is a massive caregiving crisis that's going on across the nation right now.
The crisis is that there's just not enough people to provide the care.
Exactly. And that the jobs themselves, the caregiving jobs themselves, are becoming less and less attractive. 60% of the people who are looking for a new job right now, their number one criteria is they want to work remotely. Well, delivering care isn't a remote job. And yes, we're leveraging technology to do that. And yes, we have remote caregivers, but it's really not. And we would never want to take the humans out of a human service model. More than ever, we need community right now, and we need support and access. And so, by expanding our mission to include the caregivers, we've really spent sort of an equal amount of time focused on what it means to improve their lives. And this is another sort of gift, another train, I guess, that we can sort of teach other providers, is how to improve the lives of their caregivers by redesigning the service models. So we work on their pay and their schedule strategies. I want to come back to you, Anthony, and ask a little bit more about the ad that you talked about at the beginning, because benefits packages need to be reconsidered, looking at the way that the workforce functions. Traditionally, 3-day or 5-day work weeks are sort of like the bread and butter of the industry. But, we are champions of shortened work weeks and unique benefits packages and staffing neighborhoods instead of homes, moving away from group home models and really allowing for communities, natural spaces to exist where caregiving is an amenity of living in that neighborhood, both giving and receiving.
So not only are you trying to implement a lot of these new programs for your own team, but you kind of have like a consulting arm that is coaching other organizations on how to bring the same sort of new care models, the benefits packages, the flexible scheduling and all of this to their organizations?
Yeah, you nailed it. Exactly. Okay. Yep. And it's really, really cool. It's incredible work, first of all, because it's desperately needed. We are facing, the crisis isn't new. When we talked about the caregiving crisis, of course, there's not enough caregivers. It's nothing new, though, especially in the disability industry. It's been like 4 decades of crisis. What's really making it tremendously worse, and where people think we're just going to keep sort of throwing the water out of the canoe as it comes in. We can't just keep bailing water and thinking that we're gonna stay afloat. There is this sucking sound that you hear of caregivers leaving our industry. They're going to support aging adults. Baby boomers are aging at this tremendous rate. They themselves have loved ones who have disabilities. And all of a sudden we're seeing sort of this exponential need exist in the nation. We've got 10,000 people turning 65 every day.
Wow.
Every day. And that is, it's incredible. That's 1 every 8 seconds. It is just tremendously burdensome. And as these individuals age, they need support. The support that they're then giving to their loved ones with disabilities becomes an additional gap. And essentially, we know as an industry that we are not going to be able to keep up with what private pay aging adults are going to be able to pay. Like there's no matching that with federal or state funding.
So are each of these entities, are they all set up as separate entities? You've got, Good Life, you've got iLink, you've got, I don't know how you sort of, what you call
Yeah, it's called Good Life University.
Yep. Good Life University. Okay.
Yep.
Are these all separate entities, or they fall under a nonprofit umbrella? How does this work?
So everything is a nonprofit under the Good Life Innovations umbrella. Good Life University is that consulting arm. And then right now, iLink Technologies is an LLC, but because it is fully owned by Good Life, it takes on the tax status of its parent company.
Okay.
So at some point, our goal really is to shuttle that off, gain investors to the point that we can really shift it into its own entity, where Good Life will sort of remain an owner, a part owner of it, but where it can really sort of live as a for-profit entity, making sure that our folks, especially at Good Life, are sort of forever endowed with that revenue that then would be generated to bridge the gap we were talking about.
So iLink, is it mostly like your own hardware? Is what you have like the secret sauce, the software? Are these products that I could find on Amazon, or is it more of like a distributor network?
Your questions are so great. So I would say the special sauce of iLink is really the proprietary software. So what we've built on the back end. But the difference is, and I think this is what's really critical and maybe a barrier that people don't recognize or understand, is that when you start taking a dozen different off-the-shelf solutions and packaging them under one roof to improve the independence of the people who live there, make their lives easier, or more streamlined in some way, more technically, advanced, what you end up with is a dozen different apps on your phone that all have different login restrictions, access sort of barriers, and that aren't talking to each other. And so what's made iLink really special, I think, is that we're utilizing things that sort of anybody could purchase, but the way that the hardware is fashioned and then also configured is feeding directly into that software that can sort of intelligently and with the configurations for the individuals living in each home interpret all of the data that comes out of a smart home and say, this is typical behavior. Nobody needs to intervene. Nobody needs to show up at the house. Everything's good. And instead sort of focuses on, this is not typical behavior. There's something out of whack here, or we've got a pattern that's sort of evolving here that somebody needs to check on. And so I think the special sauce is in the software. It's called iLink Assist, and it's really incredible. What we're finding, especially in the disability industry, and one of the reasons why I think it sort of lags behind other industries that have adopted technology, decades ago, is that the individualization of the care models that are used is real. It's really important. We want to make sure that the needs of the individuals are promoted, and that their choice and their autonomy and their decision making and their independence are all empowered by the services that we deliver. But so analogy that we like to use is, if we were to say that every single person needed to choose their own hardware and software, and it's like you would pick a whole separate like every single person served would
I
have their
wouldn't know how
own.
to tie them together and get them to
Yeah,
talk to each other and to
an
produce
electronic health
those red
record.
alerts that,
The
that
one
my
reason why
caregivers need
Uber
to know
works is
about.
because not everybody is using their own car. We're using the car and we're sharing it across 100 different people. So yeah, there's this sort of tug of war, I would say, like within the industry right now on how you take the focus of individualized services and build something that's scalable. And I haven't seen another solution in the technology sector for our industry that is scalable the way that iLink is scalable.
And so where can folks find your solutions?
Yeah, it's called so iLink Technologies. Go to ilinktech.com.
ilinktech.com.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So it's really interesting to me what you guys have done, and I think you put it well. Like from an early stage, you thought really creatively about how can we sort of fill this funding gap, and
That's
there,
Mike. Yep.
that's Mike. So
Yep.
Mike's people think about nonprofits and they don't usually think about innovation, right?
That's
Like that's for-profit companies. That's
especially in our industry. There is
right.
not very much innovation in the disability industry.
Yeah. So what you guys are doing in your space, it's
Very
pretty
cool.
unusual, a little bit of a
Yeah.
unicorn.
Yeah.
And so you've come up with these other ideas to generate revenue and to support the bigger mission of what not only you are trying to do, but what your peers are trying to do out there. You've got the iLink technologies that can help to support people who need the care and to help the caregivers to provide that. And then sort of, I don't know, I'm going to call it like the HR arm of things, like the university portion
That's right.
of this, where you're kind of coaching people to, here's better ways to support your workforce so that you can recruit more folks. And then when you find good folks, you can hold on to them for longer.
I'm really hoping that this becomes, I sense that it could and it will become sort of this ever expanding, process of continuous improvement, because we're not teaching anybody else something that we don't do here. And we host folks across the nation, at least 2 per month come to Kansas City to sit with us across a day, sometimes 2 days, where we walk them around and we show them what we're doing. And we walk into the fabrication lab, which is just the hall down the hall from me, or the remote support center. We're going into the homes, we're going into the neighborhoods, and we're able to show them what life looks like, what a good life looks like when innovation is at its core. And it's very inspiring. It's tremendously good work. And I think that the university component of it is really, really important, because it's not all of our ideas stick. Not all of them work. And in the end, we only teach the ones that do, that are research-based, evidence-based, that are ready to be scaled, that are ready to be deployed, that are designed specifically for the improving of such a sort of desperate and the disability industry especially it's just I don't know. There hasn't been a ray of sunshine in this industry in a really long time, I
Well, it
think.
sounds like you guys are it.
Yeah, I think so. And that's honestly one of the reasons why I love working here, and honored that I get to use my talents to support our mission and expand what our board has asked us to do, which is improve the lives of people with barriers to independence and make sure that the caregivers' lives are improved as well.
So you guys have a lot going on
Yeah, it's
with
very
those different sort of buckets that we've identified there. But I know how an entrepreneur's mind works, and the way you've described Dr. Strauss, and where he's the guy where these ideas are coming from. He's cooking up new ideas all the time.
oh my gosh.
And you guys are probably having to build some sort of a funnel or restraint system to keep him from launching one every other day. But are there things that are in the pipeline that you would want to give some voice to now?
Yeah. One of the things, especially that's so exciting and important right now, is on the technology side. We can right now design or sort of customize the software for a home but utilizing, and especially when privacy is such an important thing, identifying who specifically might be triggering a sensor within a home, a smart home sensor. Right now, we can't dial down to the very specific individuals, either the ones served or their staff. And so what we're working on right now is the utilization of beacon technology and wave technology, so that without having to do facial recognition, which has big sort of HIPAA implications and privacy implications for people who need, according to federal regulations, to have autonomy and privacy and safety and the ability to self-direct. We need to be able to protect privacy, but we also need to know who it was that triggered a specific sensor, so that the care models that revolve around that individual and leverage their and empower their independence with as much possibility as is able. So we're sort of like torn between how do we provide that independence and that autonomy, and also protect their privacy, and also make this better. So that's what the beacon and wave technology is going to do. We're going to be able to identify who somebody is.
So like have a key fob or something that's got like a little like tile on it that is sort of identifying me as I get close to these different sensor points.
Yep. And it can even like triangulate and sort of like weed out, okay, how many people are in the home, and it's logic and it is reason, but yeah, it's essentially like a beacon. It's either wearable. Sometimes we'll put it like in the insole of a shoe, on some jewelry or a watch, even in like the hem of a shirt, or So especially for people who have like sensory issues, those things have to be really sort of creatively designed. But we will, I think, by the end of this year, be able to leverage beacon and wave technology within the iLink Assist environment to move from just a home level sort of configuration capability to an individual level. And this is really important because it allows greater access to the community. We will not just be able to serve that person in their own home. They can go anywhere in the community, and we will be able to wrap these supports and services around them.
So there would be a way for the technology to sort of identify where they are, if they went down to the store down the street, because I don't know what's it using, like is it like connecting to their phone through Bluetooth and that's sending the signal, or does it have like its own like a cell transmitter in it?
I think they'll have a phone. They'll have their beacons. There may also be the use of like NFC technology within that. We should get Dr. Strauss on here because he would definitely know a lot more about sort of the technical.
I'd love that. This is pretty technical. I mean, what you're talking about, it's really fascinating. Is there? I know what Dr. Strauss's answer is going to be to this. Is there thoughts about being able to apply this technology to other use cases, sort of outside of what it is specifically that you guys do in your industry?
It has absolutely been designed that way from the get-go. It is not just for people with disabilities, anybody who has a barrier to independence. So here's a couple of good examples. Right now, if somebody gets up in the middle of the night in their own home and makes their way to the restroom and then goes back to bed, and let's say 3 minutes, let's say 5 minutes, all of that, we're good. It's fine. Everybody's safe. Nobody has fallen down. Nobody, we're good. But what happens if that individual doesn't make that circuit back to the bedroom? What if they're in the restroom for 10 minutes or 30 minutes? At some point, should somebody check in on them? Or what if there's this confusion that happens and we see that individual move toward the front door or the back door or turn the stove on in the middle of the night? Are any of these triggers that we would want to cause somebody to sort of check in and say, hey, is everything going okay? Right now, iLink can do that. It can identify the times when that out of the norm behavior is happening and provide a human in the moment to check in. And these are not just like, we're not talking about like calling centers, it's the human who provides direct care that's also available remotely. And to check in the middle of the night and say, Tom, what's going on? What are you feeling okay? Are you good to go back to bed? And what if something's really going on? Do we need to send in-person support? Do we need to call the emergency services? That right now is the way that iLink is in sort of its like core, making a difference. Soon, that's going to happen in the community as well, right? So let's say an aging adult gets confused and maybe like walks down the street. Taking a walk is great, but today it happens to be 110 degrees outside. How about we check in with that person? Or something happens when they're on the golf course and they have a wearable pendant that can allow for their caregiving team to essentially be available on demand. The applications and the use cases for this are just endless. And it's exactly what folks need to avoid more restrictive care settings, congregate care settings, which nobody really wants to go to. They want to live in their own home. They want to live in their own neighborhoods. And so often we're watching people trade just, I don't know, a little bit of need, but those needs happen intermittently when you can't really predict them. We're trading a little bit of need for a whole lot of care and a whole lot of money. And at some point, our industry already can't afford that. And all the more, as baby boomers age. So, anyway,
It's exciting stuff.
So many good things.
It just struck me, Megan, you mentioned that you're in Kansas City, and here we are recording this on Thursday, February 6th, just a few days before the Super Bowl. Are you excited? Are you a Chiefs fan? What?
Sure. Like, okay, it's hard not to get excited when there's this much energy in the town. So I do love football. Typically, though, when I say football, I mean soccer. But yeah, Monday night football has always sort of been a tradition in the McKinney household. And when we watched that, I would probably be like a little bit more of a fan if there was a mascot really that aligned though with like typical I don't know, fanfare. I don't really appreciate the Chiefs having or utilizing sort of an indigenous mascot. I just don't think that's appropriate.
Do you have a Native American background yourself?
Mm-hmm, yeah. Yep. So Prairie Band Potawatomi. So Anishinaabe people. We were in the Great Lakes area and removed several occasions sort of down south. So my ancestors specifically were Prairie Band Potawatomi and Citizen Band Potawatomi. And my grandfather, we always called him Misho. He was one of the sort of speakers of the language, went through a very sort of challenging childhood, ended up in the military, got married, made babies, went all over the world, passed away way too early. And so we're connected to both the group that's like north of Topeka, Kansas in the Mayetta area, and the one in Oklahoma, Citizen Band.
So you're looking forward to the game. You enjoy the sport, but for you, you don't appreciate the mascot. It feels offensive to you and to your culture and to your heritage. Maybe you can, because I've had this conversation with some friends before, and so maybe you can help shed some light on this perspective. Because there are certainly other types of mascots that reference other groups of people. Like I think about my high school, we were the Hoover Vikings, and I don't know, I can't immediately think of then there was the Minutemen, for some schools too.
Sure.
So what is it that's sort of different about using like Vikings or Minutemen or something like that as a mascot? Versus like something like the Chiefs or the Redskins or the Seminoles, or maybe you can shed some light there.
Sure. Yeah. So, and this is sort of just my opinion, but from sort of the position of straddling white culture, presenting very typical American, middle class in the Midwest, but also watching and listening and having exposure to Indigenous teachings from a very young age. I mean, my entire life. There's a very distinct difference between sort of and I hear the argument about honoring the tradition and its, the grit and the power that comes from having that. But there's not really been a consistent echo of respect toward Indigenous people in our history at all. And so it's hard to sort of stand by and to watch the things that are central and central to our culture and sacred to the way that we exist and worship. I don't know, like give honor to Creator and to the world that's not really being embodied by taking what we are and animalizing it. And especially when you look at like the amount of time that's really been spent trying to eliminate Indigenous culture in America. I don't see another example of really wanting to eradicate a specific culture like I have seen from colonialism that has made its way in the westward expansion across the Americas. Even African American and now like very solid Black culture, we need those individuals, and they're often put in positions of even still providing services, right? Or like old slavery essentially still manifesting itself. But we didn't ever look at Indians as a value add, not even to provide services. It was more like, how do we stamp it out? How do we eradicate and eliminate so that we don't have these barriers to accessing and stripping the land of its resources?
So for you, one of the big differences is in the way that Native American culture for hundreds of years has been treated here in this country. It was the attempt to annihilate it, right? Let's take everybody, let's move them, let's, if they die along the way, so be it, kind of, just dismissive and, treated
blankets and the whole like treaties that are never honored and the moving of a people from their land and then staking a claim on that land and going, not only do I own this now, but I will charge you to utilize it in any way. I think all of those things are just, it's tragic and really unfortunate. And when you have to sort of exist already with that amount of pain and generational trauma, to turn around and see your people be sort of made fun of or I don't know, just like it's a further bastardization of a very sort of special and sacred situation. Never should costumes emulate regalia. Never should behaviors I don't know, like mannerisms or behaviors reflect what's done in ceremony for our people.
Is there a way to have these kinds of mascots and do it respectfully, or would your preference be move on, kind of like the Washington Redskins became the Washington Commanders, just leave it behind?
I applaud what happened with Washington. I really do. I think we honestly, that's the R word we have two R words in my world.
Okay. So that's really offensive for me to just have referenced that like bristles you.
Just as bad as, and it's so hard to even come off my tongue, but Redskins and retarded are both words that need to be absolutely eliminated from our vernacular.
You've educated me today. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
You've described yourself as a spirited storyteller. Mm-hmm. How do you use that storytelling to engage stakeholders, families, donors, community partners?
Honestly, it's a challenge because of how many different stakeholders are involved in the work that we do. And we make a little joke around here sometimes that like if you want an elevator pitch from somebody at Good Life, you're gonna need to like be in a skyscraper. Like it's going to be a long conversation just to get to like the core and the nut of what it is that we do. And so I think one of the biggest challenges of trying to tell stories in this space is the first sort of lesson you learn, English major, in what it means to utilize rhetoric to communicate effectively is know your audience. You got to have credibility. You got to know your audience. And yeah, we've got like dozen different audiences that will all benefit tremendously from the things that we have to say. And the stories that we have to tell. But I think that continues to sort of be like the thing that we need to do better and not necessarily get wrapped up in who we are, but to actually listen to who our audience is and what are the stories and what are the messages that will enable them to imagine a world that looks different from the one that they've seen before, and then to tap into that and go, that's doable for me, like right now. That's what I hope we're able to accomplish. And leading a marketing department's such a trip because marketing is wild. But that's really kind of the core of like, what's the message? What's the core message? Who's our audience? Who's our target audience? And what are we trying to help them understand or learn or absorb so that they can feel safe by who we are and what we do, and so that we can really help them be the guide that they need to get to the next generation of care.
Is there a particular marketing strategy or campaign that you've used in the past that has been very successful for you?
That's a good question. That's tough. I don't know that there's been like necessarily a campaign. I feel like we are still so grassroots, and I haven't even like leveraged enough of the different mindsets in the marketing space. Ask me that again in a couple years. Like, I really think so. I think probably yes, there will be, but I don't know that there has been one to date.
How about, can you recommend a resource, maybe a book, a podcast, a course that's been really helpful and instructive for you in your path that might be helpful to those folks that are listening now?
Yeah, so one of my favorites was, this was actually a professional development opportunity I got when I was at KU, and it was called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a Franklin Covey line, and it was so good. I just learned so much about how to take my talents and sort of slough off the things that would get in the way, the barriers, the vines that sort of wrap up around your ankles when you're trying to move. And that one was really, really good. There's also a podcast that I love, and can I remember what it's called? Something about all my ancestors. Oh, I hate that I can't remember exactly what it's called. It's like a quick click in my podcast app. All My Relations, that's what it's called, All My Relations. And it's the framework and sort of the understanding of how indigeneity exists in the current American climate. That one has really, really helped me see myself, I guess, and my roots differently.
Differently how?
Just differently.
Like more favorably? Like, was there like, I don't know, like a dark cloud or like a shame that went with this before, and that this has helped lift it? Or no?
Yeah, I wouldn't say shame necessarily, but interesting. That's a really good question. Differently in that it's something that I could own, and I don't look Indian. I don't have the dark skin. I speak Potawatomi, grew up speaking it, but I don't necessarily have if you don't use it, you lose it. And my ancestors are largely gone. And so much of what we were caused to do just through this American life was assimilate. And so how do I connect and reconnect on sort of a reoccurring basis with not just the generational trauma, right, but with the strength of my people or of my ancestors. And yeah, I still don't have all that figured out.
What does
I
the
feel
language
lost a
sound
lot of the
like?
time, honestly.
What does the language sound like?
The Potawatomi language.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds very.
Would it be weird to ask you to say something?
Yeah, no, it's not weird at all.
Okay.
I just hope I do. I just hope I do it justice. I hope the tongue is right. But Bojo is how you say hello in Potawatomi. My Indian name is Wichapnagos. That was given to me in ceremony with my dad and my grandfather. I honor that very much. It means blue star. And yeah, so in our world, there's a mishmash of K's and G's and W's and Z's, but it's an oral language. And so the ability to put it to paper and to make sure that it lasts beyond our generations, it's really tricky. So my dad and his dad worked on a language project that actually took this oral language and allowed for it to sort of be manifest in writing. There's people now who carry that work on, but it's tricky and it's hard.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember. There was a Netflix series on, and it was centered around the Native American reservation. And so they would have English subtitles often because they would go into whatever the Native American language was rather frequently throughout the episode. And I cannot, for the life of me, remember it. It comes to me.
I couldn't remember the podcast.
Yeah. Well, you did come up with it eventually, though, so you get a bonus point there. But Megan, I'd be curious to hear about a serious challenge that you've gone through, how you overcame that, what you learned coming through the other side of that.
Yeah. Honestly, the hardest aspect of my life is a grief story. When I was 11 years old, my dad was first diagnosed with cancer. And he is the only son. So he has 2 older sisters and 2 younger sisters, but very special only son of his father. And so he struggled with lymphoma cancer for a handful of years, went through chemotherapy and radiation. And there's a lot of my childhood that is sort of wrapped in that sadness. And he was also such a warrior and such a fighter. So he that cancer did not kill him. It did come back 10 years later, maybe longer than that even. Came back. We opted to do a stem cell transplant. He did not want to die. He loved life. That stem cell transplant was also successful. So that's really incredible. He used his own stem cells. And yeah, it was just, honestly, it's very traumatizing to sit in hospitals and to watch treatments that are brutal and to know that this is almost as bad as the disease, except for the possibility of the outcome. And we were really lucky to be able to have many years with him. In the end, in 2017, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And for those of you that know much about that, it's also pretty rough. The warrior that he is still sort of defied the odds, had a Whipple surgery and, effectively recovered for about 5 years. And then it really took hold. And he passed away in 2021.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were an 11-year-old girl
Yeah.
when your father was first diagnosed. And so as you think back to even memories that weren't directly associated with his care and his brutal treatments, is there sort of this like heaviness to everything? Like you think back to your teenage years and it's like,
Yeah, and honestly, I think a lot of it contributed to burnout that I didn't even realize was happening. But I'm the firstborn, the oldest, and he and I were very, very, very close. And so there was a sense of duty and obligation that I don't think I knew. I didn't realize what I was doing, but I was just always the one who was there. It was like not going to be an option to not be present and be supportive. It was hard. I probably wasn't processing any of that along the way. And so I got married so young. I don't know what I was thinking. I got really lucky, but we got married in 2005, and that's when his cancer came back. So summer, he was sick during our wedding, but we didn't know why. And then my dad's dad, my Misho, passed away in October, and it was the same week that we learned his cancer was back. And so those like traumatic, those memories of like, how did we survive that? What did we just did. We just did what was sort of in our core and in our bones to do, which was survive. But there wasn't really a lot of thriving, if you will. And so my little brother came to live with us. My dad and mom moved for a stem cell transplant that took up half a year. I was leaving school on the weekends. I was a senior in college in Nebraska, going to support my mom so that she could like get out of the hospital and go shopping for a few hours, care for him during the nighttime hours, which were very confusing and chaotic. It was really, really hard. And I don't think I realized in the moment how much that challenge would impact who I am and the way that I like exist in the world. But we did that grit, and it was not until 2020 when COVID hit that we sat down and just sort of like, to protect my dad, be like, we're not going to see anybody else. We're not going to do anything else, and took a pass essentially on life and sheltered in place together. And I think that was really kind of the first aha moment that I had, that I was exhausted. And finally the world was sort of settling in and going, we're just going to not for a while. We're going to just, everyone stay home. And boy, I reveled in it. I loved it. I needed that so desperately. And I was so mad. I was so mad that my dad, who loved living, was just confined to his home for these, last few weeks and months. We were lucky enough to get, 18 months or so. But
so for you, the initial part of COVID was actually a welcome blessing.
It was a relief. Yeah.
It slowed things down for you. It sort of cut out all the outside stuff and just allowed you to kind of be here, to be with your family
in the moment. But yeah, that was, I think, how I first realized that I was burning myself out, that I was overdoing it.
You were overextending yourself. Yeah. Traveling back and forth, helping to take care of your family, doing your own work at the same time.
Yep.
Since your father has passed, has there been any personal development work on your side that has helped you kind of process those traumas, those emotions that you weren't maybe fully aware of at the time?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is like tapping into energy work and magic. And it sounds really sort of silly, but I think when there's so much we don't know about science, and especially like quantum level science, that I think there is there is a capability, an ability within every single person to be their own healer. And the way that you sit with that and sort of explore that is it's just fascinating. And so what this looks like really tangibly is meditation or breath work or grounding, so like connecting, letting your chakras or your root reestablish itself in nature, and in creation, listening to the birds and recognizing like they have something to teach. I consider them family members. I consider nature to be an extension of our family and of our consciousness. And so since he's passed, I referenced earlier just feeling lost a lot of the time. It's because my teachers are gone. I can only access them now through a sort of spiritual realm. And I feel so confused often about how to tap into that and access it in a meaningful way. And I think it just kind of looks like keeping open-mindedness and not letting myself sort of get caught up in the rat race of middle America, especially now. It's really, really challenging and also really beneficial to just opt out in a lot of the teachings, I guess, of where we are, and picking the teachings to follow, the ones that are true and that are right, and to hold those near and let other things just fall away.
Kind of tune out the extra noise.
Yeah.
You mentioned meditation as being a vehicle for you to sort of access these healing places. Is there a specific style of meditation or breath work that's been helpful for you?
Okay. Yeah. So, my partner, Seth, my husband, he did transcendental meditation and has explored that. And I think that one's pretty cool. I haven't done that specifically myself, but I see good things. Quantum touch is a really interesting modality of energy work that honestly sort of gives that gift of a healing touch to anybody. Like you could do it. It's just, there's no restrictions. I also really like Wim Hof because there's this method of like building and energizing just through your breath and like oxygenating your body, that I find fascinating. And to sort of get like an ethereal experience from just breathing. I don't know. I find that
it's
to
a
be really cool.
Wim Hof, for those folks who aren't familiar, it's a series of different kinds of breaths. If I'm remembering correctly, there's almost like a controlled hyperventilation that kind of takes place, and then holding the breath, and it causes something to take place in the body where there's sort of this sense of relaxation, floating. Am I doing it justice?
Yes, completely. And there's like, it sort of ends up feeling, I don't know. I feel very empowered by it, especially when fear is so much a part of our experience, our human experience. I find sort of that breath, I almost want to say like manipulation, but it's not in a bad way. Just like the capability of what my body can do. I find it to be really empowering and enlightening in different ways.
What is quantum touch?
Okay, so this is it's specifically sort of an energy. It's an energy work where sort of breath is drawn up and the energy is pulled up, and then shared sort of like up and in, and then sent through sort of quantum realm to any time, any place, any any person. And essentially it's different than like Qigong, which is going to be so much of like building up stores of energy inside yourself and then ascending out of that energy that you've stored up. What I like about quantum touch is that it's just channeling and empowering somebody else. You don't end a quantum touch session feeling tired or exhausted, because it's a regenerating, replicable sort of approach. And so really just unlocking the recipient's own physiological ability to heal itself and to put things back in sort of the natural order, and relieve pain, sort of, immediately. It's really
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Megan, I've just got one more question for you. But before I ask it, I want to do two things. First of all, for everyone listening today, I know that you love today's show. Megan's been a wonderful guest. So to make sure you don't miss out on other great shows like this, please hit the follow button on your favorite podcast app. Megan, I also want to let people know the best way to get in touch with you or to continue following your story or that of Good Life Innovations. What would be the best way for folks to do that?
So probably the best way is to go to our website. So mygoodlife.org is the nonprofit service hub. Goodlifeu.org is going to be the Good Life University main center. So come there. This is for the consulting arm related to staff stabilization strategies, the integration and utilization of technology in our service models. And then ilinktech.com, which we referenced earlier, for really digging in on what the technology can be. And you can find me also on LinkedIn. I don't really do much on any of the others, but come see me on LinkedIn. How about that?
Okay. Last question for you, Megan. As you look to the future, what is it that you're most excited about for all the entities under Good Life Innovations? What's coming around the corner that's got you particularly jazzed?
I really hope that we can, I'm excited about how we can contribute to value-based funding and partnerships with managed care organizations and reimagining how federal and state funding and insurance can, I guess, how those resources can find innovators in the field and can really sort of reimagine what community looks like that will make a difference in everybody's lives. And I think there's a mechanism in there and a math problem that we can figure out where we're filling care gaps that are otherwise sort of fractionally, disconnected and disassociated, and where we can go, we've got a solution for that. And I think there's going to be, some real neat changes that we see in the care industry if we make space and allow for those innovations to flourish.
I'm excited to follow that progress.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Megan, I want to be the first one to thank you for sharing both your time and your story with us today. I really appreciate it.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Folks, that's a wrap on another episode of the Inspired Stories podcast. Thanks for learning with us today.